Hello, everyone. Welcome to another episode of We're Not Helpful. I'm Brayton, joined again by Julian.
Hello.
Hey, Julian. And special guest today, we have Violeta Bagia. Did I get that even close?
You totally did. It was actually spot
Yes.
on.
Yes. Nailed it. Off to a good start. How are you today?
Yeah, really good. How are you both?
Good. Hanging in
Good,
there,
good.
surviving. We're
Yeah,
both
this is
we're
good.
both on holidays at the moment, so it's been nice.
Oh, nice. School teachers, right?
Yeah,
Yes.
yeah.
Yes,
Yep.
awesome. Very, very cool.
Yeah, it's one of the benefits.
So you guys get holidays every time kids get holidays, right?
Yep.
Yeah, okay, that's cool. That's so cool. That's really good.
I would look, teaching has its challenges, especially in my area. I work in early childhood.
Oh, yes.
We cover both ends of the spectrum because I'm actually a teacher of the deaf. So I work in early childhood with deaf and hard of hearing children. And
That's
Julian,
incredible.
yeah, I really like it. And Julian works in high school.
Oh,
Yep,
wow. So you've definitely covered it all from
Yeah.
one end to the other.
yep. So I'm a high school English teacher, so I read books and discover meaning you didn't even realize you put in there. And we'll
You know,
argue against you that it actually exists.
I was actually going to say you are my favorite people to speak with because you're like, oh, this meaning that you put in here is so important. I was like, yes, let's go with that.
Yep.
Totally meant that.
Totally meant it. There is a reason the curtains are blue.
And not just you like blue.
Exactly, exactly. So yeah, it's good. We bounce off each other.
Um, so Violetta, did you want to give just a brief rundown of who you are, what you do, I guess day to day, or your entire
Yeah.
life, start from your birth and work your way through there? Up to
Yeah,
you.
well, no. I mean, how long is this episode? Um, I will give you a brief rundown
Yep.
because I find, I don't want to talk about myself the entire time in terms of intros. I write books. It's my jam. I started out writing young adult, I call it fun fiction because it's all about, dystopian and the end of the world and, there's aliens and intergalactic beings and dimensions and whatnot. And then I slowly started making my way into writing more, I guess, speculative fiction, but for adults. So if I was to compare that kind of genre, it would be like a really deep and meaningful series like the X-Men crosses James Bond. So I got into, I guess, science fiction in that sense. So then I merged into space opera, which is also really fun and very, very exciting. Nothing I've ever done before. Then made my way into crime, not performing the crime, but writing about the crime. Just to clarify.
Is that
Then
you're not just getting really into the research of the book
no,
and just going out there.
yeah, no, we haven't quite crossed that line of immersive writing yet.
That's
And then
when
most
you
recently,
can't come up with your next book idea.
yes, exactly, yeah. So I need to spend a few nights in prison to really understand the character. Um, and then I moved into contemporary fiction or literary fiction, I guess, depending on who you speak with, for young adults. So that's where I'm at the moment.
Awesome. Because looking on your website, you do have. I was struck by the number of books that cross genres
Yes, yes,
all over the place.
correct.
Because if anyone saw on our Instagram, Facebook posts, I did read The Reaper's Descent in preparation for this, which I think was one of your young adult books. Was that one of the
Yes.
earlier books you'd written, like in your
Yeah,
career?
yeah, it actually was. It was published quite late in comparison to some of the other stuff which has been written more recently. But the reason for that was, again, long story, but just to cut it short, we did find it at home here in Australia, but that publisher unfortunately folded, so all the rights
Ah.
were reverted back to all the authors.
Mm,
So it took a little while to find it a new home, but it was one of my earlier pieces, which was the fun YA.
yep. And yeah, I finished it yesterday, and I do mean this in the best way possible, but I think myself as a mid-30s man is probably not the target audience for that book. And
Exactly.
I did enjoy it, but I just had that in the back of my mind, like I don't think this was for me.
No, no. Look, I mean, it's one of
And I
those
hope I
things.
hope you don't take that in a bad way.
Not at all, not at all. Look, I when I wrote it, it was definitely full transparency. I actually wrote it when I was probably in my mid-20s, and it was for my little sister who was just kind of getting into her teens. So it was written for her for that sort
Mm.
of age range. And yeah, it took a while obviously to get it published and get it out there and find it at home. Hence why it was only published in the last 45 years. But yeah, it's a fun little story. It has a
Yeah.
special place in my heart.
Right. And do you ever look back on that book now that you've got a few more books under your belt? Do you look back at that and think like, oh God, what was I thinking? Like I guess you probably think you've improved as a writer. Do you wish you could go back and kind of rework some things in some of your earlier books?
Well, that's exactly what we're doing with the Ace of Hearts series. So
Mm.
that was the first series that was actually published in America. And that one, we had the whole series out. Then once the sort of the rights period ended, I brought the rights back to myself and then re-released them self-published. So I rewrote them in a way that sort of felt right at the time. And then my current publisher, who did the Reaper's Descent, they took that entire series on as well. So now we're
Oh,
actually
nice.
reworking it for the third time. So it will be a full revival, which is really exciting.
So does that mean are you rewriting them from scratch or just kind of
Yeah, much.
re-editing? Oh my,
No,
Wow.
so we've pretty much rewritten the entire first three books. I'm working on the fourth and the fifth at the moment to get that to a really exciting stage. I think yeah, Ace just had a lot more that she needed to get out there. So
yeah,
it's really exciting that I could go back and do that and kind of give her a new voice, I think.
yeah. And how has that, I guess, are you tempted to kind of keep the same plot beats for each book and just kind of write it quote unquote better in a way?
Yes,
Or do you,
100%.
yeah, you're not tempted to kind of like, oh, I don't like this ending anymore and just completely changing it?
No, so that's a funny thing. Like I think when I so when it was initially published, so this is going back to 2017, the first Ace book. When it was initially published, there was a lot of that kill your darlings situation where
Mm,
the editor and the publisher suggested a few kind of major rewrites. So I did that, being a first time author, releasing the first time ever book. So, I kind of handed over the reins. I had no idea. So I entrusted the entire process to them. And I'm glad I did because it kind of did teach me a lot of things that I hadn't known before, even with my own writing and my own storytelling. But having said that, I also didn't get to write the ending I wanted to. So I didn't
yeah,
actually get to tell the story I wanted to. Whereas now, what has been written is the iteration that I wanted to put out there in the first place. So now I guess it's just tightening that up
yeah.
and I guess rewriting a little bit of the stuff that leads to the endings. But the endings, I think, are the ones I wanted to have in the first place.
Mm.
Awesome.
So I haven't read any of your books, which please don't be offended, but I haven't read any of the books of anyone we've interviewed. Brayton just tells me we're interviewing this person. Please turn up and don't offend them.
I'm very hard to offend, so it's fine.
But when I was looking on your website, I noticed you had the Heart books, and they actually, that sort of storyline really intrigues me. Like I read a lot of Michael Connolly and that sort of thing, and it felt very in line with them. But saying you're going back and kind of working on them, is it kind of a, how do I word this? Is it good to rework them with all of them already made, so you kind of already where it begins and you already know kind of where it all ends, and you can just kind of improve the journey, so to speak?
Yes.
Is that how it's working, do you think? Or
Yeah, absolutely. That's exactly what I'm finding this time around. Initially, when the series was pitched to Solstice Publishing, who did the initial release, it was only intended as a three-book, like a little trilogy.
mm,
So I had the entire three-book journey planned out, beginning, middle, and end of all three books. So they had a neat little ending. once I got to that final book, I realized, again, like a lot of people do, I guess, when they write series and trilogies and they expand, you realize your character has a lot more to say, and so do you, through the character. And so when I got to sort of book 4 and 5, I mean, obviously tied everything together, but it would have been a lot easier if I had the finished product. So just as you said, now that I have, book 1 through to 5 and they're already in existence, I know where I need to work and I can kind of sprinkle those little red herrings throughout. So it's a lot easier to tie things in that are really important and make sure I haven't missed anything. Whereas I think the challenge I found the first time around when I was writing book 4 and 5 was, I needed to somehow, my favorite word, somehow tie in, all of these wild things that had been kind of said and speculated throughout book 1, 2, and 3 and somehow made sense in book 5, and it just got wilder and harder, and I think I wove myself a very difficult web to unweave in the end, but with a lot of plotting and planning we got there. But I'm 100% confident it'll be a lot better now that I know exactly what I'm working with.
Bit of a somehow Palpatine has returned moment for you.
Exactly. This is my favorite quote. Whenever somebody's like, "How are you going to do this?" I was like, as Poe Dameron said so eloquently, somehow.
So are they all going to be released all together this time, or will you sort of stagger the releases again, 1 and then 2 and then 3 and so on? Or
yeah, so they're still staggered because the editor who is working on this, and she has taken on an epic challenge, bless her heart for doing it. But yeah, she's obviously got other projects on as well, aside from my books. So we're releasing. Yeah, I know. How dare she? How dare she have a life outside of me? I'm clearly the center of her universe. So rude. So yeah, book 1 should be released later this year. And then we're hoping to sort of have a little tumble on effect from the next 5 years.
Nice. My only question, because I'm definitely interested in reading these books once they do come out, because like Julian said, they kind of seem interesting. My only question is, are you keeping those original covers? Because I really like those.
I love the covers too, and my little sister actually designed them. She's incredible.
Oh, nice.
Yeah. So she did all of those for me, and she did my little space opera novel and my sexy fiction novel. So she's done all of those, which is really cool. But no, because it's part of a different publishing agreement, they have their own people that they need to use. But the covers that we're kind of looking at right now are really exciting as well. So kind of in the same vein, like that grayscale look as well. So definitely on brand for what Ace is and what she stands for, but a little bit different.
Cool.
You mentioned your spicy novel, and I have to ask, I understand spicy novels and romance and that. What exactly is your website calls it a dark romance? What exactly is the dark?
A dark romance.
What does that mean?
I just want to preempt this by the fact that you are talking to two, I think, late 30s, early 40s cis white men here. We unfortunately are not very versed in the romance side of reading. So educate us, please.
Let me educate you. Honestly, the title dark is also new to me because I had never known it either, because I was just like, well, there's romance and then there's your kind of erotica, right? So like, what's the difference? And then I found there's hundreds of subcategories. So dark romance is where you kind of have, I guess, a lot more darker content. So, there's elements of murder and sexual abuse and torture and whatever else it is. Preferably not just for entertainment's sake, but actually to drive the story forward, hence the title dark romance. So it is usually something that you'll find is quite heavily, guarded with a lot of content warnings and trigger warnings, etc. Whereas, your other spicy romance would just be, I don't know, like your run-of-the-mill Mills and Boone type of stuff, which generally wouldn't have content warnings, I wouldn't imagine, unless it is crossing that sort of darker, spicier line. Does that cover the education base?
Yeah.
I had no idea that the category of romance was so nuanced. So
Yes,
there
yes,
you
it
go.
is. It's very, yeah, I also am very new to it because, like I said, I've never kind of ventured into writing it. It was a
Hmm.
challenge to myself.
Look, I've just been introduced because I've been listening to the audiobook of Fourth Wing,
Oh, yes, yep.
and I've just been introduced to the concept of romantasy,
Yeah, yeah,
which
yeah.
is that's a new one for me.
I don't read fantasy, so I've
Hmm.
I've kind of like tried to read it, and I
Yeah.
don't know. I mean, I've read, I think, is it is it The Dark Prince? Gosh, I can't remember now. But yeah, that's I guess that would be romantasy as well, maybe.
Yeah, it's just like I don't know. Fourth Wing has just been a phenomenon, and I felt like I had to at least give it a shot to call myself, a book reader or
Yeah.
talk about books on a public platform.
Yes, yes.
But yeah,
I Yeah, I was gonna say I think I've started it, but I haven't quite been hooked yet.
yeah, audiobooks definitely the way to go for me for that one because I can just sit in the car and just let it play as I'm
Yeah,
driving to work.
I might have to do this also.
Yeah, I'm a big advocate for audiobooks.
Amazing. I haven't tried. I'll need to. I'm big on podcasts.
Yeah, definitely. I was gonna say, so I guess you've written in lots of different genres. Is it hard to kind of make that transition from book to book? Like, do you get like a genre whiplash, almost going from one genre to another, or do you find that transition really easy?
I think the first foray from writing anything that was kind of, urban fantasy and science fiction related and then moving into like the crime novel that I wrote, that was really hard, really, really hard. I'll just emphasize that it was something that I think I gave up on the project numerous times. Took a solid amount of time to actually complete just because I found it really hard to stop sort of relying on supernatural elements to fix problems or cause problems or give somebody, a reason to be able to, you know, work out a problem or a solution, right?
Hmm.
Because it would be like, oh, well, how are we going to find this out? Well, it's fine. We'll just go to the mage or, we'll do a spell or, I can use clairvoyance or something.
I'm
Whereas,
reminded of a scene in The Reaper's Descent where there's a character, I think it's Eric, and
yeah,
I think your word was she Emperor Palpatine him.
yeah, yes, yes.
It's like, yep,
Honestly,
that's yep, magic.
it is right. So like I love the use of magic and being able to kind of like fall back and like and be like, well, we can just use magic or we can use, like anything, right? Like pseudoscience or make it up and it works within the world.
Hmm.
So when I was kind of moving over into like the crime fiction, it's like, well, I can't really use that. I mean you can, but it's not that genre anymore.
Yeah,
And I was really determined to kind of write like a gumshoe detective novel, which was it's something I loved
yeah.
watching and reading growing up. So it's like, okay, we're going to attempt this, and yeah, gave up on the project so many times because I just couldn't wrap my head around the fact that people do things in real life without magic. So it's like, come on, it's like we
I
can
know
do
it's
this.
such a crazy concept we have to get through this world without magic.
Exactly, yeah, and nothing to sort of rely on, and it's just like, hey, this is us, this is all you've got, and I think that challenge in itself was like, okay, we've got this, we have to do this.
So I'm guessing there was a lot of research involved, and like you said, you read a lot of books in that genre to try and get like the feel of it.
Yeah, yeah, and I think I watched a lot of Criminal Minds and a lot of Law and Order. So that's my number one research is Derek Morgan from Criminal Minds. Definitely watch that show for the plot lines. Definitely.
Absolutely, the only reason.
Absolutely.
So I guess when you're going to these books, are you a planner or more of a pantser or a bit of both?
Definitely a bit of both. I've had to give up that panster lifestyle in favor of plotting now that there are actually people that are wanting complete products by due dates. so so in order to actually adhere to timelines and deadlines given to me, I've had to start plotting a little bit more. Um, I'll give you a little sneak peek. I'm gonna pick up the laptop here. Hopefully nobody gets motion sickness, but that's my little plotting wall.
Wow.
Is that a whole wall of whiteboard?
Yeah,
Little plotting wall.
yeah,
That's
my little plotting wall. So I've had to revert to properly actually writing everything out and getting incredibly detailed.
so you just
For the
revealed big spoilers for your book just then.
Yes.
for the listeners who don't see the visual here, when she says little plotting wall, she's actually got a whole wall of her room covered in planning. So
Yeah,
little is a
I think it's like a 3 by 2 meter wall to give you an idea. It's painted in whiteboard paint, and there's currently like 3 like concurrent timelines running. So this is for the YA speculative fiction that's coming out in April next year. So that one's been incredibly difficult to get right. So I've had to go to town with timelines.
So after you showed that, I have to ask, after seeing that, what was the discussion with your husband like when you said, I want to paint the wall to make it
There
a
was no
whiteboard?
discussion. It was, I need to paint this wall. Can you please source this paint for me? And then I was like, also, we need to source somebody to paint it, because I'm like, I'm not going to sniff these fumes. So fortunately his uncle was able to come and do this. And after it destroyed all of his equipment, I did have to buy him new things, because, yeah, neither of us knew that paint was just so wild. Like, it completely destroyed all of his rollers and everything.
Wow.
oh wow.
Yeah.
I honestly had no idea whiteboard paint existed.
You know how I learned about it? I was an office manager for 3 different roles in 3 different companies. And every time they kind of did a bit like a reno in the little office, they'd get this company to come and do these whiteboard walls.
Yeah.
Like, this is just amazing, because, you no longer have to just have, this one ugly chunk of board stuck to your wall in an office, especially if there's like all these new contemporary offices with all the greenery and everything. And yeah, that's like painter. You can basically paint, because it's a clear coat only. So you can paint it over any color you've got. So some of our offices had it painted over like bright green walls, or, bright orange walls, like whatever the decor is. And yeah, I was like, okay, we need this paint. It's as simple as that.
I'm married to a primary teacher, so it's long been on her wish list. I've known about it for a while.
Yeah, do it. Honestly, I even let my my 2.5-year-old, I've just gotten her like a little bucket of whiteboard markers, and when I'm working, obviously she can only reach to a certain height, so that's her section of the wall which remains clean, and then I just like use the rest of it, and it's perfect. So it even gives her a bit of entertainment.
That's amazing, and I want one. I don't know where I'd put it in my house, and I don't know what I'd use it for, but I want it.
Just I mean, you'll find a use for it, trust me.
Well,
You'll find a use.
if it's there, we have to justify it.
Exactly, that's it. You could plot your podcast episode.
Perfect. Well, I was gonna say, we're both also married to teachers as well.
Yeah, oh, amazing.
So I think we'd get some use out of it.
Yeah, for sure. Honestly, it's been the best investment. I've had it painted up on here for the last 7 years, I'd say, and it's just great.
Nice. Well, whatever helps. I guess everyone has their own ways of doing things.
Exactly.
And I guess that leads me to the next thing that you mentioned before about how you kind of were forced to change your story earlier on in your career when you're writing, you're forced to change your story. Have you developed like more confidence now to sort of say like, nope, this is the story I want to tell, and this is what we're doing, or do you still have to have that kind of flexibility with an editor?
Look, I think it's definitely something where you have to learn, what your own boundaries are and how to set them, because at the end of the day, it is your story that you're telling. And you have to, I guess, if it's something incredibly important to you and you don't want to change it, you have to be able to say sternly, no, but let's try and find a compromise. However, I also do understand that at the end of the day, I'm the writer, and that's my professional sort of segment. If you want to kind of look at the entire process as little segments of a machine that works really well. And the editor and the publisher, they're professionals in their segments, right? So they might know more about what the industry expects, or, you know, what works better in the industry than I would, for example. So if they're telling me reasonably, you know, hey, let's just try and change this because of, you know, X, Y, and Z, then I can obviously understand there's a reason for it. And not just, hey, we don't like this character, they're shit, let's get rid of them. So if they can give me a good reason as to why, and I can back it by saying this is my reason as to why not, then I think we can usually find a good compromise. And I think the sort of the current editors that I've been working with at both publishing houses have been really, really great. So we haven't had too much that we're changing or needing to work on, aside from this very difficult book that I was just showing you the board about. That is having we're having discussions right now about things that need to change, and I'm finding it hard to do so, but it is what it is, and we're going to have to find a compromise.
So have you got, that's your crime novel?
No,
or different one?
This is the next April one. That's the young adult set in Melbourne, early 2000s book.
Okay.
So
how many projects have you got going on?
I was actually talking to someone on like a publishing Facebook group yesterday. I think at any one time I have a minimum of 3 going on.
Oh my goodness.
A minimum. It can vary, but it's usually 3 at any given time.
And here I am struggling to have just one job, and this is a hobby.
Look, I think it's a place that you kind of get used to working in, and then being outside of that place, it just feels strange, you know. I think because I've just gotten used to it. This is how it is.
Are you the type of person that kind of just thrives on adrenaline, like a deadline's coming up and that's when you do your best work?
Yeah, for sure. Even throughout uni and high school, it was always the same. Or like marketing projects at work, my goodness, the managers would just lose their marbles. They're like, what do you mean it's not done yet? I'm like, you've given me the job, trust me to do it. It will be done. I'm like, I need this.
Oh my goodness. So is writing your full-time job now? Because I know you also have, I think it's a coaching.
Yeah. So it's part of the same thing, really. So it's writing coaching. So that's my it's my little venture that I launched late the year before, actually. And that's kind of just been, you know, I do that. I even do little counsel sessions, which I volunteer my time, which is awesome. So I do that every other Saturday. Part of the Writers Victoria Festival as well that's coming up. So it's just part of the little gig that I do. And then writing is full time, aside from being full-time mum.
And that's a full-time job.
Yes, it is.
Yeah,
definitely.
Yeah, I've got 2 kids myself. I know what it's like.
Yeah, it is honestly a full-time job. I think people tell you, but you are never really prepared until you're in the midst of it.
Especially at 2.5, because 2.5-year-olds are very demanding.
Very demanding and big personalities.
Yeah, and that doesn't change.
No.
I have a 12-year-old and a 7-year-old. And that doesn't I know. I'm crazy.
And you're still smiling. This is good.
It's all the caffeine.
Yep.
It's because I get some time off from them to talk to you.
Oh, good. I'm glad. I'm glad to give you something relaxing to do.
Well, they're on holidays too, so it's constantly like, I'm bored. I need to do something.
And then they fight with each other.
Yeah.
Oh, good.
Because someone sat a bit too close on the couch.
Oh, yeah, and crossed the invisible line, I can imagine. Yeah. Yeah, that was me and my sister.
Looking at your website, like Brayton brought up the coaching and stuff that you do. I was reading one of your blogs, and I thought it was really cool where you give those little tips about starting writing. And I thought one of them was really interesting where you talk about write what you know, because a couple of weeks ago we did a podcast on the worst advice you've ever gotten. And one of the things that we talked about was writing about what you know. And I can't remember what the advice surrounding that was, Brayton. But I'm a big advocate for that myself. That you write what you know, what you see and what you experience. I think inevitably plays a part.
I think the context for that
Mm.
one was essentially if everyone only wrote what they know, then things like Lord of the Rings or any kind of fantasy stuff wouldn't exist, because really no one's ever actually been a wizard. So you need to use a bit of imagination.
Of course.
Mm. Yeah, but so can I get you maybe to talk us through the other two? Like you talked about finding a stranger on a train, and sort of the third piece. Can maybe talk us a bit through those ones that are on your blog, if you remember them?
Yes. Let me refresh my memory.
So I think they were really cool pieces of advice for people who are looking to at least get started, get stimulated in writing.
I think the reason that for me it was one of the things where the write what you know, obviously, yes, you need imagination. But even with imagination, I think a lot of people would tell you that you still ground things in reality somewhat, right? There are still going to be laws that, the general human psyche will recognize and abide by, and we need to have that in even fantasy, even space opera, even anything, right? There are still laws, and there are still things that we need as humans to be able to connect with in order to remain grounded with the story and be able to immerse ourselves in the story. So yes, while I believe, of course, you need imagination and you need to be able to think of these fantastical elements to add in your story, whatever you're reading, if you pair it back, it is still going to be grounded in reality and something that we know as people. So that's my counter to that.
Yep.
So in terms of the stranger on the train, that one came to me from people watching, really. I would people watch a lot. Like, I was catching the train since maybe 2008 to about 2019, just before the pandemic. So I probably stopped in 2020 when everything kind of just kicked off, and I started driving to work. So that was a lot of time to have spent on the train, an hour and a half in each direction. And it came to me as a concept of, I would always have my laptop with me. I'd have my laptop and I would, just have a look at someone sitting there with whatever it was, like having a book that's closed on their lap. It's like, okay, why are you not reading? What's going on in your mind? Has something, occurred during the day that's really put you off and you can't focus on the words in front of you? So, it would force me to look into that person's mind and try and write a narrative, basically. Like, what is your narrative? What's your story? What made you pick that coat today? It's a sunny day. Why have you got a raincoat? Have you anticipated something that, the rest of us don't know? Are you a stickler for checking the weather every 5 seconds so or is it just typical, well, it's habit, it's Melbourne, so I'm going to pack a coat? It's just what we do, right? So that's where that concept came from, and it was important to me because it forced me to I was mentioning before about having that struggle to go from using magical elements to writing about, normal everyday things. That was part of it, because I was so focused on using magical elements to say, Eric is thinking this, and Alex would know because she's obviously got powers, right? But it's like in real life, it doesn't work like that. It's like, what is that person thinking based on what you're seeing? And it was simple. It was simple as that. And it was just, use little clues about what you've seen on that person, like, maybe their knuckles are a bit red. It's like, okay, you can probably deduce that maybe they are in a laborious job, or maybe they, hit the punching bag for fun every second day, and that's why their knuckles are a bit red. Maybe they're a bit redder today because they had a especially stressful morning, so they really went hard at the bag in the morning, or something like that. So it forced me to get out of my own head and my own comfort zone and think deeper about what people are, and come up with their stories. And that's where that concept came from. So I find that a really helpful tip for anyone sort of starting out and struggling to write about what somebody's thinking without using these magical elements to fall back on as a crutch, and just actually think. It's like, here's a person, it's a real person. Every single person has incredible stories in their mind and things that happen throughout the day. It's easy to find them if you allow yourself to sit there and think about them.
Yeah. And we should probably caution our listeners that you're not telling them to pick someone on a train and just stare at them open mouth for the
No,
20-minute
no.
trip. That's probably not the
Definitely
best
not.
idea.
It's probably a bit strange. And I mean, look, I mean, personally, I can't hold eye contact for very long. So, I mean, if you can do that, kudos.
I think that's really good advice because we both went through our own theatre degree as well and our time of acting. And of course, one of the things that they love to say to actors is just people watch. Just people watch. It really can help you, and it really can help you connect with that humanity of people and the grounded nature that we're not all going through something supernatural. Sometimes it's just real life stuff. So I think
Which
it's really
oftentimes is more horrific than anything supernatural, you know. So yeah, if it helps us learn about how people act and interact, I think it also helps us, you know, by default, have more compassion and empathy.
Absolutely. I think that segues nice into some of your blog posts that we talked about. You're a big advocate for mental health.
Yes.
And I think that was one of the things that struck me on your original emails that we had kind of talked back and forth when trying to organize this.
Yes.
You mentioned you're a big advocate for mental health, and I know that's close to our heart because Julie and I have both gone through our own mental health struggles. Still ongoing, but you know, that's a whole other story.
Yes, likewise. Spending big
Always,
hugs.
yes. Because that's just life nowadays.
It is. And I think somebody wise once told me, my psychologist in particular, she's like, healing is a lifelong thing. She's like, it's not miraculous. One day you'll wake up and you're like, oh, I'm healed. She's like, no, one day you'll wake up and be like, oh, I'm a little bit healed. And then you'll slowly start getting better and better. But it is lifelong.
Yes, absolutely. And I found, I don't know about you, but in my own journey, I find that I'm more, as I am kind of, as you just said, like that quote unquote healing process a little bit day, I'm learning more and more about myself, and that's kind of influencing the way I approach things in my life. And do you think that through your journey, you don't have to get into any specific details or whatever, but in your journey, has that kind of influenced what you want to write and what stories you want to tell?
Yes, it definitely has. I think when I first started writing, there was always an element of wanting to sort of really really demonstrate, I guess, the strength of a woman. You know, speaking from obviously my own experience of writing what I know, it was important to sort of really get the picture out there of a strong woman and what that looks like. And in the beginning, it was with those supernatural elements. You know, she's a badass super soldier or, you know, an intergalactic hero, whatever it is. But beneath all that, when it's paired back, it is always fundamentally about, you know, a strong, not just physically, but also mentally strong. And it was something that I never was, which I'll openly admit until quite recently, probably in the last 4 to 5 months, really, I've only allowed myself to use the term that I am mentally strong now, because I don't think I was, and I don't think I knew how to be. So, you know, it has been a grueling, long process to sort of get to this point where I can hand on heart say that, yes, I am mentally strong now. And that has definitely influenced and changed the way I write and what I write about. And I think mostly it's just a lack of fear. There was always this element of fear of, you know, what will people think if I write this or say this about this character or write this blog post. And I think there was always a bit of self-editing, I would say. I would self-edit what I would write and how I would put it out there, because I, you know, didn't want to be perceived as, you know, this weak person who had all these problems, all these issues. And now I'm just like, you know what, who gives a shit, honestly? Because this is fundamentally the truth, and a lot of people are feeling this level of shit to some degree, whether it's for this reason or that, right? But why would I, when I have this power and this ability and this confidence to share this story and help somebody, why would I filter that down? You know, I feel like it's my duty to not, and to actually be quite transparent and open about it, which is why I think, you know, if you do go back over my posts, you'll sort of see this gradual shift of like a few things speckled in there to now it's just like, bang, like I'm going to hit it head on. And people are welcome to be uncomfortable and leave, but it's not my job to make people comfortable. It's literally to make you think.
Yeah. I think I definitely saw it in your last post about your can't remember the title, but it was like consent.
Yeah,
I'm forgetting the title of it.
consent and coercion and
Points and coercion's not the same thing. Yeah.
That's
yeah.
it. It was very like straight down the line. Like this is
Yeah.
this is
This is
this,
it.
this
Yeah.
is how it's going to work.
Yeah, absolutely.
I found that one, sorry,
Yeah, sorry.
a really interesting one. I don't know what it's like in Victoria at the moment, or even if you are up to date with where we are in Queensland, but very, very recently, we really, really strengthened our laws against coercive control.
Mhm.
So that's really tied into our criminal code now, and very, very strict wording on what it is, and this is not okay. So I don't know if that news kind of filters down to Victoria or not, but I found it a really interesting read. And so I was going to ask, like Brayton said, is that more of that mental strength? You're in a place now where you can just go, you know what, I'm going to write this, and this is what it is.
Yeah, 100%. And that strength came from a few things in the last sort of 6 months. The first was the book that is coming out next April specifically is like it's literary fiction, and it's based on elements of my story. So it's not a complete memoir or anything like that, but there are elements of it that is my story. And the difficulty that I guess I faced in writing that is that I had to face these demons head on. There was no, I was like, well, I'm writing a whole book about it, right? I'm going to have to sit there and actually dig deep and go back into the past and sort of have a really solid think about things. And, once I kind of landed this publishing deal for it, which was, the first sort of like, oh my God, this is exciting. And then there was a oh shit moment, like, oh my God, what have I done? People are actually going to read this now. Like this is wild and also terrifying. And then it spiraled, like everything where I thought I was mentally strong, it just spiraled because obviously it brought up a lot of memories. So full disclosure, it is about sexual assault and suicide attempt. So, it brought up a lot of stuff that I had not processed or that I had not actually sought any proper help for because I was constantly in survival mode and, just kind of like, what's next, right? Like succeed at this, finish that, move on to the next thing. And then, here we are almost, 20 years later. It's like, okay, we have actually not processed anything at all. So let's start processing. And that processing part really kind of showed me how not mentally strong I was. And then that kind of spurred me into finding different avenues to get help. So I'm a huge advocate for obviously seeking help if you need it. Big shout out to my psychologist because she's an incredible woman. Who's a huge mental health advocate as well.
Plug your psychologist.
Yeah, it's like here you go, psychology. So she's amazing. And then I turned. I used to do martial arts back in the day. Kind of gave that up just for whatever reason, got lazy, and then went back to it in the last few months and have really been hitting that hard. And I think a combination of those two things has given me that, mental, physical, and that like center of spirit strength, right? So I feel like for the first time, all three elements of my psyche are working together really well. Which is part of the reason why you're probably seeing all the blogs now being really straight down the line, fluffing about. It is what it is. People are going to have opinions either way. So why not go out with something that's going to actually change perspective, right?
Yeah, that's awesome, and it's so like congratulations for getting where you are. Like it sounds like you've been through a lot and done a lot of hard work. So well done.
Thank you.
Yeah. There's writing what you know, and then there's also confronting what you've been through and writing about that. So I think that's a very brave thing to be doing as well.
Thank you.
So yeah, I'm not sure I'm in a place where I could do that myself. So
hey, it took a long, long time. So maybe when the time is right, I think that's one thing that I advocate for as well is don't force it. When the time is right, everything comes to a head. It just does. That's just the way the brain works.
So turning back to a bit more lighter fare, maybe. So I'm really interested in your Heart series. They sound like really interesting books to read. So I love crime fiction. You talked about it being an initial trilogy, and the idea of writing it, because I I've written one novel and I barely had enough content for that. And so did you have that in your head? You had this very definite 3 book arc, or did you just have a storyline that you kind of started developing and you're like, this is too much for one. This is going to have to be more than one book. So which kind of fence did you fall on there? You had that pre-planned, or like, no, too much, gonna have to break it up?
Yeah, definitely the second one. It came to me as just a story. So I kind of had the whole story as a whole. And once I started kind of, because that was back in Panzer days, so that was just like, go hard and write and see what happens. And I think it ended up crossing like 200,000 words or something.
Wow.
It was like, well, this cannot be a single book. There's no way. But it also didn't have any conclusive like beginning, middle, or end, right? It was just a story. So I think once I had an organic kind of ending to what is now the first book, it made a lot more sense going into book 2 and 3. But then book 3 ended up being almost 200,000 words alone once I started expanding, which then gave me that obvious need to split it up. And then once I finally split the third book into the fourth, it was very evident to me that there was no proper ending, so I couldn't leave it where it was. Also just don't like even numbers, so it had to be an odd number. So, somehow I created material for a fifth.
So the fourth book, would you say, without giving anything away, obviously, was it like, oh, I've got a few too many side plots happening here, I need to create a fourth book? Or was it no, this story is just not going to finish in time? Or
No, there was a really important, so this is my toxic trait. I'm incredibly hard-headed, and when I get an idea about a story, like, it just has to happen. I can't sit on it, I can't ignore it, I can't write around it. It has to happen. And because of that, it inadvertently created this huge mess of a giant subplot that needed to be explored and finished, which is what created the fifth book. So the fourth is by far the biggest book as well. So it had to remain the way it was. It had no other organic ending. So I made no apologies. It is double the size of the others, but it's fine. It needs to be.
that's all right. Is there an ETA on their release, or still just a work in progress rewriting them?
So the first one will be later this year.
Fantastic.
And then the others will follow yearly, hopefully, unless anything goes catastrophically wrong. But I don't foresee that happening because, I've already gone through the really hard line edits for the second, third.
Yeah.
But that's my number one series. So definitely a very special place in my heart for Ace.
I will definitely be checking it out, and I'm assuming just keep an eye out on your socials for when they'll be.
Yeah. I try to keep sort of everything on there just because I know it's easier to go back and it's all saved for posterity.
Awesome. It's the easiest way to just put out there, hey, you just got that publishing deal.
Mm-hmm.
Post all those. Congrats on that.
Thank you. So exciting. So exciting.
I think you said that's your 8th publishing deal or something, which at this point is just showing off.
Yeah.
I'm sorry.
I should just stop putting the numbers there.
No. Flex. Absolutely. Why not? We've got to be our own cheer squad sometimes.
You Absolutely. Have to. I'm also a huge advocate for cheer yourself on, because honestly nobody else will.
And so obviously the most burning question that we're going to come to today in this interview, can we expect another dark romance?
Oh, absolutely. It's already in the works.
Fantastic. I want to read the first one now because I need to know what dark romance is. So
it's pretty exciting, I have to say.
Is it, I guess,
how much I enjoyed writing it. Like, I shouldn't say that. I was just like, oh, damn, this is actually exciting.
I prefer to hear an author say they were really excited writing it and happy writing it rather than going, nah, hated it, absolute slog, worst thing.
I have heard that from some authors, though.
Yeah.
Especially when you get to like maybe book 5 or 6 of a long-running series, and they're like, I just had to get this out.
I mean, I've heard that about actors and roles they've played, like they've really hated it. Like George Clooney still harps on about hating Batman, but I'm
That's
just
fair.
like, okay, yeah,
I
but it
think
is what it is, right? Like,
yeah, and I
be
think
humble
Robert Pattinson during Twilight absolutely
during Twilight.
hated that entire series.
Daniel Day-Lewis has said that about most of his characters.
Oh, really?
Well, he puts himself through an 8-month process of
Well,
living
he
like them.
does because he's
Maybe take
really
it easy, Dan. Yeah.
yeah. Maybe like tone it down. Yeah.
Oh, that's good. I'm looking forward to reading it.
Yeah,
Oh, thank you.
I will definitely. I'm definitely going to jump into the Oh my god, the Ace of Heart.
Ace of
Mm.
Heart.
Sorry, the title of your book completely left my brain for a second there.
Hey, it happens to me all the time, and I wrote them. So.
But yeah, I probably won't read the spicy adult romance.
Hey, I mean, look, don't never say never.
That's just me. Would you compare it to 50 Shades of Grey, or is it better than
Absolutely
50
not.
Shades of Grey?
Look, I wouldn't say better because I hate when people do that with other authors because it's like, look, there's a reason they are what they are, and there's a reason I am what I am. So I can't say I'm better or worse than somebody else, but it's
That's our job,
definitely
Brayton.
Yeah,
yes, exactly. That's your job.
we are not better.
But it's predominantly it's actually not as spicy as it should be. That's some feedback I've gotten because I realized I liked the spy story in it more because it's about SIS and the KGB, right? So it's predominantly about spy agencies in the world and, you know, double agents and triple agents and crossing each other and whatever. So it's like a proper spy novel. So then by halfway, I realized I'm actually enjoying the spy element more than the spicy element. So then I kind of just drop all that off. So if there's any criticism, it's probably that it's not sexy enough.
No, I read the sample on Amazon, I think it is. And look, you did kind of. I was intrigued. This whole why was this person in prison? Why is the relationship with the
Oh,
sister
yeah.
so? What happened there? And I kind of want to know what happens. So
But
I'm
honestly,
probably
like
checking that one out.
I think by halfway mark, it really drops off from the spicy fiction and just becomes like a straight up like James Bond novel. So I mean, if that's any indication of how much I prefer to write, you know, about the crime stuff, that should be it.
I do have to ask because I posted on Instagram yesterday about I finished your book and had burning questions like what is your
Yes,
favorite
please.
ice cream flavor?
Mm-hmm.
I did get. Oh yeah, would you like to answer?
It's just plain vanilla, very boring.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
I was joking, but I did get a comment on our Facebook of someone that does have a burning question for you.
Mm-hmm.
If a train leaves Melbourne at 8 a.m. traveling north at 60 kilometers an hour, and another train leaves Brisbane at 9 a.m. traveling south at 80 kilometers an hour, how old are the cheese sandwiches in the buffet car?
Do our trains even have buffet cars?
It's a trick question.
And also, Melbourne's very terrible. We don't even have like a train line that goes to the airport yet. So I highly doubt that we have any kind of train line that goes interstate.
There's your answer. So if you ask that question on our Facebook, there's your answer.
Yeah, there you go. Like, oh, it's like, wow, our trains are amazing. We have buffet cars. I wasn't aware.
A long journey like the GAN or something does.
Yeah, that's true. I have a burning question for both of you though. Favorite movie? Don't think about it. Just get it out.
The Fountain.
Oh, okay.
100%.
Julian?
That's been my favorite movie for years now. That's my go-to answer.
Okay.
How to Kill Your Neighbor's Dog. It's a real movie.
Eloquent response.
I have never heard of that movie.
It's also known as Mad Dogs and Englishmen.
Oh, yeah.
Kenneth Branagh film.
Yeah.
Kenneth Branagh. Okay.
Yeah. Nice. Love it. Love it. Good.
It is a comedy, not a guide to urban warfare on neighbors' pets.
On Neighbours, yeah.
Yeah. I've never heard of that movie. Okay, I'm gonna have to check that out.
The Fountain, though, that really intrigued me.
Have you seen it?
No.
Hugh early 2000s, Hugh Jackman, bald through half the movie.
Yeah, cool.
Also dressed as a Spanish conquistador for the other half, and yeah, it's nice.
Cool.
If you're into Hugh Jackman.
Yeah, definitely. Who isn't?
I know.
If they say
Dr.
they're
Cox.
not, they're a liar.
I got to see him live when he came out for his tour a few
Oh,
years
that's
ago.
cool.
It was so much fun.
That's very cool. That's cool. Nice. I like it.
What's your favorite movie?
The Terminator 2.
Nothing wrong with that one.
Yeah, it's definitely it's been my favorite since I was a kid. It's never changed.
Do you like that? So I guess, Julian, did you have any other burning questions
No,
to ask?
no. I think you've answered my questions really, really well, actually. So
Oh, thank you.
I've got everything I covered. I guess the only other thing is, what do you like? What do you like to do to kind of unwind at the end of the day? What's your hobbies besides writing?
That's a good one. Well, now that I do martial arts quite seriously, I
Mm,
love just getting into the gym. We have a home gym, so I just get in there and hit the bag, do
nice.
some stances, practice some moves, make sure that everything's as fluid as it needs to be.
What
Yeah,
what martial art do you do?
Wing Chun.
Oh, nice.
all right.
Yeah,
Like that's the one Ip Man.
yeah,
That,
yeah, yeah.
yeah, they're good movies.
Yeah, such great movies. I love them. So yeah, it's even cooler being able to sort of sit there and be like, oh, I recognize that combo, like I recognize all those stances, and it's like, oh, mine's definitely not as fluid as it needs to be. So it's a good little reminder of what it should look like.
Well, you're comparing yourself to Donnie Yen.
Yeah. Who is a good friend of my sifu, which is amazing. So
Oh,
yeah.
that's amazing.
Yeah, so he's constantly got like little, it's like, oh, what would Donnie Yen do? I'm like, well, I don't know, I'm not Donnie Yen.
One day, there's your goal.
I'll tell you.
Be Donnie
Hey, look,
Yen.
if I can get choreographed to look like that, that's fine. I mean, nobody needs to know that I can't do it for real. As long as it looks real on camera,
That's it. That's
That's all
all
that
you need to do.
matters.
that's all that matters.
Uh, well, thank you so much for your time today.
Mm.
We really do
Thank you, Brian.
appreciate it.
Great.
Where can people find you if they're interested?
All the usual socials, just not X or Twitter. I left that platform.
Yep.
But Instagram, Facebook, and then I think my website's probably the best kind of hub because it just links to everywhere, and that's just brightpointcoaching.com. It's easier to remember
Nice.
than
And
my long name.
and
It's a
they
great
can
website too. It's really nicely
Mm.
set out, really easy to navigate. So the user interface is perfect, I think. As well.
Thank
So,
you.
cool.
Thank
And
you.
they can hire you for some coaching.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah, I even happy for, if anyone just wants to shoot a question over for some quick advice, always happy to have a chat about writing, or tips, or, how to get over imposter syndrome, whatever it is.
School good. Well, thank you again. We really do appreciate you coming on today.
Oh, I
Um,
appreciate you both. Thank you for taking some much needed school holiday break time to speak with me.
No, all good. We're trying to get it's great when people just you just randomly reached out to us. And
Yeah.
it's so good when that happens because it makes us feel like, oh, we're actually doing we're getting out there, we're doing something.
Well, you are, and you know what? It's such a good thing because you want to, I guess, have those chats because they're the real chats, right? Like it's not
Mm.
scripted, it's not fluffy. It's just like, let's just talk about things that are real and actually come up, and I really like that.
I guess we'll say goodbye for now, and maybe you'll
Thank
come back on later, maybe when your books come out and we can have a chat.
Maybe after you've read the spicy fiction.
Yes.
Thank you so much. Have a good one.
Thank you.
You too. Thank you.
Bye, everyone.
Bye.
Bye.